episode of Outside of the Box. It's an MRCA party as a bunch of competitors prepare for MRCA Finals. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And we're winding down 2024, getting towards the end of the year, and that means a lot of finals are happening for leagues and things like that. And one of those leagues is one that is near and dear to my heart because of my proximity to said events. But that would be the MRCA Finals. And so I have here a bunch of folks who have been skilled enough to qualify for finals. And I'm really excited to get into talking about these bots and kind of finding out what all of your journeys have been like and what you think about finals. So welcome to everyone.
Hello.
I think that
Hello.
you're all new to the show. I'm pretty sure. I don't think anybody has been on yet before. So it's pretty exciting to have a lot of new faces. So I'm just going to kind of, go around and let everybody talk about your bots. And because of the number one ranking there, Ian, I'm going to put you on the spot. um, and you can go first because I mean number one is first, right?
Yeah, number one is very fortuitous for me. So I'm a college student at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. Wait, is it showing correctly? It is. Yeah. So um I started, this is my first year. I started earlier this year when I joined Rose sent a contingent to NHRL. So I joined one of the robots as kind of like their wiring guy. I basically just soldered up all the electronics for that robot. I didn't do any design. And after going, I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is something that I want to spend a lot of more of my time on and, work on developing my robot design skills. So I started doing it. So I developed like V1 of the pipeline as a as a as a razor leaf. Um, but yeah, so I've been to 9 events this year. I think finals will be my 10th and loving it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that's great though, that you've been able to do that. We'll go ahead and I'll go around like in a clockwise fashion. Directions are weird on Zoom. So I'm gonna switch over to Desmond.
Yeah, so this is also my first season, first full season in MRCA. I qualified with Technetium this year. I started out this year not knowing too much about combat robotics. Um, my previous event, I had bots that were fully made out of PLA. And so my second event this year, Technetium, the bot I'm qualified with, got first, and that was its first tournament. And so far, I've just been iterating on the design, making it hit harder, making it more controllable. And this has just been a really great season.
Yeah, that's awesome. Emily, the only person on this call that I've technically had a match against.
My robot is Marg, and it was kind of a team effort with my teammate Dustin. I basically was like, hey, I want to do this, but I don't know what I'm doing. And he had made one last year, and has a lot more like robotics experience with Vex. So I was like, I really want a horizontal. I don't know like what I'm doing. And he helped, like we kind of worked together to make it a reality. And my first event was NHRL in April. And he was driving my Mini and I ran right into him and broke my own Mini. So it was a really solid start to my robotics career. And ever since then, like we've really been making a lot of changes to make it better. We added wheel guards, we added a stronger weapon, and changed the wheels and tried really hard to like just make it better every time we compete with it. So the last event I got second, which was really exciting because I never thought I'd ever podium with a robot, because my driving was a little rough at the beginning, but I think it's gotten a little better. So I'm really excited to see how it does. And I'm really proud of like how far it's come since April when we originally made it. So yeah, I'm really excited for finals and I've loved like seeing how everyone's robots have like changed over the year. But yeah, this is my first year, as you can imagine.
I mean, I'd say pretty good for a first year. You've certainly had quite a lot of fights. So, no, that's really exciting. Luke?
Hello, so it's me and Wyatt. We both drive robots. In fact, with finals, we are driving 4 robots in finals, 2 in each class. I am subbing for Jeremiah, who has multiple robots qualified, so I'm driving one of his, which is Chop Shop, which will be really fun to drive, I think. Also in Ants, Wyatt, he is driving our robot, Wasley Wabbit, which is our first design that we did by ourselves. It's ant beater bar, which we were talking about earlier, right? But it also has a drift setup too that I can, which is in the background. For Beetles, I'm driving a Peter Bar kit. Imitation is the name, and Wyatt will be driving our SSP kit, which is named Fling It. This is our first full year. We did one MRCA event last year in September. Prior to this, but it's our first full year here. We've only been doing it a little over a year total, so it's been fun. George has been a lot of help, especially on the SSP kit. Thank you, George.
No problem.
George is a helpful person for sure. Elwood.
Hi, my name's Elwood. I'm only 13, and I have a modified scalar kit named Jimmy Jazz, and I've been competing for just around a year. My 1-year anniversary will be on the 28th. And I've tried to constantly improve this robot while trying to keep the prices low. And it's kind of been on a steady downhill. But I think finals, I've got a couple configurations that should make it a lot better, and I've been practicing my driving. So I'm really excited to see how it goes. And this is only my second robot.
That's really awesome. Qualifying with your second robot. So definitely should be very proud of that. Caleb.
So I'm Caleb. This is my background. This is my main robot, Blackout. I've been in combat robotics for a little over a year now. Last year I had my first event. I ran a 2-wheel drive dual-sided wedge. Ran that for a few events. I got Blackout going this spring, and yeah, I've ran like half a dozen events with it now, and every event I find new ways to break it, and so it's been a lot of fixing it, making changes, and hopefully I'm getting to the point now where it can kind of just stay stable and I can start working on some new projects.
Yeah, awesome. Tyler.
Hi, I'm Tyler. My robot is Bigfoot. It is technically my second robot. My first robot was a fairy called Little Bigfoot that I just threw together to go to my first event, but I kind of threw that away essentially and just scrapped the parts and used that in Bigfoot, which started as a plastic ant last, I believe it was September or October, somewhere around there. And I've pretty much, it's been my primary focus for the first half of this year until the second half where I started working on my Beetle and stuff like that. But otherwise, we've been to quite a few events. I think about like 7 or 8 events. It's done okay. It's got third place twice, but it kind of did better than I initially expected. The weapon doesn't do much, but it pretty much just relies on my driving and its ability to stay alive.
Yeah, so sometimes that's all you need, really. And last but certainly not least, George, who's right in the middle right here.
My name's George. I am going to be competing with 2 robots in Beetles, my SSP based robot Performance Anxiety, and in Ants, my scalar-based robot, Gunboat Diplomat, which has been made most famous by DJ, who has determined that he can fight it as a vert when it's not supposed to be a vert a couple of times. So I'm hoping to continue that success on into finals when I get to take over driving duties.
That should be interesting. And yes, DJ certainly has some interesting thoughts on robots. So no, that's really awesome. So I have one, kind of group question that anybody can jump into, and then I have a question for everybody after that. But the kind of whoever wants to jump in question is just, MRCA, I think sadly gets overlooked sometimes, maybe by people who aren't in the area and who aren't regularly competing there and maybe don't see it as, a really strong league. But I think that the level of competition at MRCA is insane. I think it's hyper competitive. And the fact that you all were able to qualify for finals, I mean, it's a real, like, you can't just go to one event and win and qualify. It's really like a whole season thing, and you have to keep coming back to make sure that you're in that top echelon of robots to qualify in the end. But what do you all think about the progress that MRCA has made and kind of how far it's come, and really getting to be one of the stronger leagues, I think, out there for people to come and compete, even those that don't necessarily live in the Midwest. I know some of you are a little bit newer, but I'm still curious to get your opinions on that.
My first event that I went to was the Iowa robot fighting in 2023, and that's the closest event to me. And we went there and watched, and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. But at the time, I didn't know anything about MRCA or anything. I thought it was just Iowa. And I don't remember who pointed me to the Discord server. And I was like, and the website too. I realized that it was more than just one event. It was a whole series of a whole community even around just Midwest based robot fighting, which beforehand I've watched the NHRL, and it's on the other side of the continent. And I really like having events close to me that I can actually go to. And there's been a couple new ones that I really like. There was one in Lincoln, Nebraska. I can't remember the name of it, but that's only 2.5 hours. So that is nothing compared to, I think it's 18 hours of a drive to go out to NHRL. And again, there's for a little while, I thought it was just Minnesota and Iowa and maybe Michigan. But there's events all over the Midwest, Ohio, and what's another one? Wisconsin. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
Something
definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
We definitely have some NHRL caliber robots. We have Remy and Rachel, of course. So Wicked Wedge, Monkfish with the current rule set's not able to compete in MRCA events, but they have their own ants as well. And Mud Skipper is top dog in ants that nobody's really figured out how to consistently take down yet. The competition is definitely different. I competed a lot in Tennessee. I know the Rose Group has as well,
Yeah.
and it's definitely a different level. It's definitely, I would say, we're gonna have NHRL caliber Beetle events next season without any question.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
wasn't it Smirk where a lot of NHL competitors end up making their appearance in the Midwest
Yep, we had
at Smirk?
Voxel and then
Voxel Carmine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there was a couple others too that were from East.
Yeah, Alex was there from Jersey.
And there was another one too that was like Sir Spinny or something that also had
Yeah,
Yeah.
Minibot
Spinny was
Humu
out there
Humu,
as
right?
well.
And they're mini
So-
qualified. They're 1 pound qualified for finals.
I think that the Smirk had 10 different states that was that Smirk. It was a
Yeah.
lot. It's actually
There
really
was
cool.
there was a lot.
I mean, it makes sense. Michigan is kind of the eastern part of the Midwest, so it attracts a lot of people from out east.
Mhm.
It's quickly becoming an east-west thing, even within the Midwest, now that we have so many more
Yeah.
events over toward Michigan and Ohio going on, that for us, like I'm in Indiana, Luke's in Michigan, it's easier for us to get to those events. So some of the robots we're going to see at finals, we haven't seen at all this year because we almost have an east-west division going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know RSL up in Minnesota, there's a lot of bots that don't even come down to Wisconsin. So I can see that.
I thought it was interesting. At the reveal, they talked about how many fights we've had this year, just in general. So there were 1,177 ant fights this year, with 190 new ants this year, which is absolutely insane. And then beetles were not ranked before this year, but we had 96 beetles and 437 fights with beetles. So I think the number of beetle fights was similar to the number of ant fights last year. So you can just like see how much it grew in a year,
Mhm.
which is awesome. And I don't think they expected the amount of beetles that we got this year, which is really, really cool. Because lots of people are making new beetles for next year, which is going to be really fun to see what people come up with, and what a lot of ant builders are building beetles. So I'm really excited to see like what people are going to have next year.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've
That's gonna
we've
be fun.
also ran quite a few events with modified Swiss. So we have a minimum of 4 fights for every competitor instead of two with double elimination. So that really increased the number of fights. And our whole system's based on ELO. So more fights equals more chance to gain or lose ranking, depending on how you fall in that. And then it's almost like a mini NHRL style where you get those 4 fights and then you can possibly move on by number of wins into the finals of the event. So there's just overall a ton more fights available.
Mhm.
I think for me, MRCA is just really competitive. 'Cause my first event was not MRCA ranked, and then when I came into this year, my bots were torn to pieces. It was really crazy, but I think at the same time, having this caliber of competitors made my robot so much better because if I want to start winning, then I have to get my robot to the best it can be.
Or even just make it to the end of half your fights.
Yeah.
I know that was one of the things I kept in mind when I was designing Technetium. It's never been knocked out in this entire season, and it's just nice to not lose parts anymore.
Yeah.
Show me your
Yeah,
rings.
I would say one of the biggest difference between I competed last year, but a lot of my events were not MRCA events last year. But even with the MRCA events I did at the beginning of this year, reliability in robots in general has increased tremendously over the course of this year alone. With the SSP based robot, you get the big giant wedge if you get that as part of the kit, and it was really good at just killing horizontals. A couple of good whacks, and motor's just dead, and that doesn't happen anymore. I have to be able to resist big hits from big horizontals for 2 minutes and hope that I've done enough to win a judge's decision. And it's become extremely difficult as a control bot to maintain and win those judges' decisions.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something that I've been
Hello.
really excited to see. Hey, TJ's here. Well,
Oh,
you're
do I got to put the robot behind me?
if you want, but you're gonna immediately get thrown into the hot seat
Oh,
now.
hello.
Because I'm having everybody I've had everybody talk about their robots. So now that we've done that, I'll shift back and kind of let you talk about yours.
Oh, so I designed Mothership sitting in the back of a high school classroom, uh, with the intent to never build it. It was just a pipe dream robot. And then all the stars aligned, and I got to both build it and take it to Norwalk. And then I've just been iterating on it since.
How do you feel about it going into finals?
I hope to find its limit because it hasn't been knocked out yet. And I'm still not sure whether I'm lucky or I designed a good robot.
That's always the question, isn't it?
It's both.
um we were just having a talk about like MRCA and how far it's come and like the level of competitiveness. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm brand new to the MRCA, but from the outside looking in, it's always been the scariest ants come out of the Midwest. So that's when I designed mine, I was looking to the Midwest because I figured if it works there, it should work down in Texas.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I would say I haven't entered the ant field in MRCA at all, but I've heard nothing but like the level of scary when it comes to the ant weights there. So now a question that I have for everyone, and I'm really curious to get the answers to this. So, I'm sure that you're familiar with some of the other bots that are in the field headed to finals. If your bot doesn't win finals, who do you think is most likely to win of the other bots that are out there? I'm curious, and I'll go in the same order that I did originally. So I'll start with Ian.
Okay. Flashbang from Rose Holman, Elytra from Rose Holman. They're gonna win. I think. There's just no question. They are good. They're very good. They hit extremely hard. At least, okay, Flashbang is more reliable. It's more time tested. He's a more veteran competitor. He's clutch. I believe he has clutch driving. Um, I can't say enough good things about Flashbang, and Elytra is more of the same. I think it's the peak of vert design on wood, in my opinion. That's how I want a vert that goes on wood to be designed. So, yeah.
That was a very certain assessment there.
Yeah.
Desmond, what do you think?
I haven't entered the Beatles yet. That's for next year. But I think this year, well, Mud Skipper, of course, is a favorite to win it all. Um, I'm half hoping to fight them just because I want to test my robot in the most extreme circumstances. But I think Blight also has a pretty good chance to take them down in a later match.
We'll see. Emily?
So I mean the top two Beatles, Ian's Beetle, Pipeline Punch, and Wicked Wedge are both, I think, really good contenders. I was against Remy on steel floor, which was not very fun for me because I have a horizontal that goes flying. But his driving is like absolutely insane. Like it is so hard to beat his driving, and he it's a tank. Wicked Wedge is a freaking tank. So I know, I guess I've fought against both of them this year, but from experience, my gosh, his driving's amazing. But Pipeline Punch is also a great robot, and like we knocked each other's weapons out within 15 seconds of our fight, so that was pretty cool. It was I can't beat a wedge once our weapons are gone, but I'd love a rematch. That would be fun. So yeah, both I feel like both of those have a really, really good chance of winning.
Yeah. Luke.
I'm probably going to go through a lot of them. Sorry. I think that Ian has shown great growth with Pipeline Punch. I've watched it back at Michigan Mashup when it was Razor Leaf, right? So
Yeah.
I thought even then it was a good bot, but it's gotten even better. I saw it in Tennessee when we went to the crossover event, and I think also, did you run Razor Leaf then, or was it Pipeline
I
Punch? I
did,
don't
yeah.
remember.
I was running both of them because
Yeah,
I had
so
parts for both. Yeah.
so I think that's got a good chance, but I also agree with Emily that Wicked Wedge, just from Remy's driving alone, I've fought Remy a lot, both in competition and outside of competition, because he's helped me and I live close to him. Dude can drive. It's probably the best weapon of it all, and he doesn't even have an active weapon. But he can definitely drive. I know he has a new iteration of Wicked Wedge that we might or might not be seeing at NHRL. So we may get to see some fun stuff there and see what happens there. So I would say he's probably up there, and I actually think George is due. He had a great year last year, and I think he's due. So I'm gonna give a shout out to George as the third one for Beatles. Ants, it's Mudskipper or Blight most likely, but um, anything can happen. And the drivers, especially on the ant weights, the competition is rough. It's everybody can pretty much drive, and it's going to be a battle of who can fix things best is what I think it's going to be. How's that?
Yeah.
Very fair. Very, very fair. Elwood, what do you think?
For the ant weights, I don't think it's a matter of weapon. It's a matter of driving. I've watched quite a few fights, and there's just been times when giant spanners have just been destroyed by wedge bots just because of the driving. So I think it's either going to be Blight, because he's going to try to get you cornered and just stay there and wait for you to attack, or Alex, Team Quinault. I think last year they took Scrapper. His driving is really, really good. So I think it's just going to come down to the best driving. I think Mud Skipper might get counted this year, but who knows?
Yeah. Caleb.
So ants, the easy answer. The matchup we all want to see is Mudskipper or Blight. That'll be a fun one. But if I had to pick a dark horse from the ant weight lineup, I like Chop Shop. It's as long as the weapon works, it's a scary robot, and it's fairly durable for what it is. And top plates, they're not super strong in ants. In beetle weights, I really like Wicked Wedge. Just Remy's a go-to driver, and that's a super tanky bot. It can take a lot. So we'll be excited to see what the new version is at NHRL and see if it can keep up with everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler.
For ants, I mean, obviously, like if I had to bet, I would say I would say Mudskipper or Blight, but I think Cuttlefish in the like at bet spots they won the whole thing, and maybe that's just because he beat Bigfoot twice at that event, but knocked me out twice. But he brought a new iteration to bet spots, at the end of the season, so I think he is going to be one to look out for going into finals for the ants. I think he's going to do better than I think he did during the season. And Beatles, I haven't actually paid as much attention to, but I think Pipeline Punch is definitely going to be a scary one.
Yeah. George.
So I mean, obviously 1 and 2 is Mudskipper and Blight. So, but I do think this is the year that the king may fall. Blight's been really dialed in. I think he's fully capable of beating Mudskipper. Most likely that's our final.
Mm-hmm.
But Nas is right there in third place. He's beat Remy before as well. They kind of always go back and forth. So he could come in with Nas and spoil that for everyone. There's also a couple of sleeper picks further down the list. Pain Tolerance with the Lego hand.
Yeah, that.
It's just a really good control bot. Riley's able to box you in. Gunboat fought Riley at Smirk, and we had nothing. I mean, we were killing it all day. DJ was on top of it, and Pain Tolerance got us twice because we just had nothing for it. We also got a couple more overhead attack bots. Scrubba's down there, Riker Maneuvers down there, and in Beatles, everybody says Wicked Wedge. I think Wicked Wedge. I don't think a control bot's going to be able to do that well, myself included. Maybe we can go deep, but we're definitely not going to podium. Throngler's really good. It's sitting there in third place in the ELO rankings. It's kind of that Thagomizer, comes at you with a wedge, whips around and hits you with a horizontal. I've had a couple of matches with him, and we're split 50-50. I got him once, he got me once. Casey with variant. If it's dialed in for finals, which did he say he was going to run that or not?
No, he
He's
won't
not
be
going.
running it.
That's right. He said he wasn't going to run it. So Casey, you should run it because you'd probably win. Jenny's down there. Knee biter. Dave's robot's pretty good. I mean, there's just a lot of it goes deep. You can go 10 bots down. Elytra's in 12th. And Elytra could just run through the winners bracket easier than any of the top five.
Yep. Elytra, Flashbang, I've never won a match against them. Elytra, I won once on steel. It doesn't count.
I'm gonna add Choppa Bappa too, if you don't mind, because that's an overhead camera saw that he actually runs it very like a control bot, but then also has the weapon, right? So I'm gonna add that one because I forgot to say that one too. Sorry.
Yeah, and he's further down the list because he's had some weapon inconsistency problems, which have been fixed. And the fights where the weapon worked, it was a really scary robot. So I think that one could make a run for it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and TJ, you're the last one. What thoughts do you have?
So the beetle I'd be looking out for is Carmen. I don't know if they're coming to finals, but that long four-wheel drive beater bar is just such a scary design, and I know they're built to Norwalk spec because they come from that area, and I think it's a scaled down 12. I'd be very interested to see how deep they can go because it looks like they turned up to one event and qualified, but that put them in fifth. So I think that's a very, very scary robot that just hasn't had that many fights.
She also beat her dad because it's Voxel's Mike's daughter who drives it. She beat Voxel at Smirk.
That makes it a little bit scarier.
Yeah.
I think that's the robot I want to match the
She went
least.
6-0 that day. So
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you never know, but I think, especially after having talked to Casey, not that long ago about just the sheer level of talent that's going into this finals. And that was before, the actual qualifiers were determined and everything else like that. I mean, just kind of hearing that from him, I think it's going to be a really amazing finals. And I hope that people get a chance to check it out because I think we're going to see some really good fights. But does anybody have any like last thoughts before we wrap up on finals or anything to do with like MRCA kind of headed into the future?
Next year is gonna be next
Go
year is
ahead.
gonna be a fun year, I think. I know ants are already huge. We had over 250 ranked bots this year, and what Emily say, like 90 beetles. And I know there's gonna be a lot more beetles next year. I'm working on one finally, and a lot more events too. If I remember right, there are around 20 some ranked events this year, and I know that the MRCA board's been talking to a lot of people about hosting new events. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I was gonna say for anyone watching that doesn't know who all these robots are, our social media for MRCA has all of the qualifiers and like some little snippets about them with pictures. So feel free to check that out. It's Midwest. Let me check. Let me make sure I'm telling you the right thing. But it's Midwest. I think it's Midwest Combat on Facebook. I don't. This is so bad. I should know that.
I'll drop a link in the
Anybody that
description.
knows it should be you.
I know. It's Midwest Robot Combat on Instagram. I do know that one.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Check out these bots because I mean, I think a large number of us, kind of compete at lots of different events and things like that. I mean, as much as we can. But I think, like you talked about, the growth of MRCA, we're definitely trying to bring more to Indiana next year. I think there's going to be a little bit more presence in Illinois as well. So I mean, like, more events is helpful, and the more demand there is, I think the more we're going to be able to continue to grow. And there's no shortage of demand at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious how the extra events is going to affect like the mixing of bots, because when you have to drive, when there's fewer events and you have to drive further to each event, you have to fight more of the same people. But if there's more events, you're not going to have to travel as far. So it'll be curious to see that there'll be pockets that won't meet, and a lot more pockets of bots that won't see each other until finals.
Yeah, finals is I'm looking forward to that because the majority of the bots I've fought are Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Missouri. So all the Michigan bots, there's a lot of good bots from there. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, get to meet a lot of people, fight some new bots. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we're
No,
being in Wisconsin, we're lucky because we're like smack dab in the middle. So we end up fighting
Mhm.
a wide range of bots.
I
no, I
definitely
haven't.
think there's gonna be a lot more beetles, which I'm excited for. But I'm also really curious to see if we're gonna have another big boom in ants, or if it's gonna stay the same or even drop.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I think, ants are something that is really accessible for somebody that is very new and doesn't know a lot about building. And I think there's a lot of that, like, base level interest that's out there for people that are just looking to get into it. So I personally, I think it's probably going to grow all the way around. But we'll see what happens. I'm really excited. So please make sure, if you're watching this, that you check out the MRCA finals. It's only a couple weeks away at this point, which is crazy to think about. But I wish all of these competitors luck, as well as, everybody else that's competing. And we'll see what happens. Will somebody come out that, we weren't expecting to win? Or is Remy and Rachel, are they gonna kind of do their thing? So we'll see what happens. But congrats to all of you for qualifying. I thank you so much for joining. And if you're watching this, please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, comment, everything like that. Get the word out more about combat robotics so that we can continue growing this amazing sport. And we'll see everybody next time on the show.
Thanks.